computer. Well, welcome to the podcast, Happy and Single. I'm your host, Joseph Anderson, and we are doing something different today. We're starting a new segment, and the segment's called What I Wish I'd Known When I Was Single. And what this is really about is helping people find hope and happiness through the stories of other people. The other day, I was sitting around and I was thinking what would be really cool is getting people on that have shared their stories about how they've, I don't want to say made it through being single, but how they've made it through being single and how they
How we
also enjoy
navigated.
it. So my guest today is my good and dear friend Jennifer Stirling, and I'm so grateful to have her aboard and appreciate her agreeing to this. I want to just give her a moment to share a little bit about her.
All right. So I'm Jennifer Stirling, Jennifer Stirling Campbell now. Haven't officially changed my name yet. It's too much of a pain. Just don't want to do that quite yet. But got married last year, exactly a year ago. Actually, I work at a botanical garden. I do social media for a client. I work for Lindsay Stirling doing her sheet music. I've been divorced twice actually. And I run a blog and I'm developing a program for people who want to overcome depression because I actually struggled like very, very, very badly with depression from the time I was a little kid till about 25 years old when I finally started finding solutions. And that was a miracle in itself, whole different story. But my hope is that I can share what I've learned, what worked for me, and so that it may work for them too, because I don't want people to have to suffer any longer than necessary and suffer, because suffering is not what this world is about. I think too many people, especially in the church, think if I endure to the end, if I just suffer through it, I'm going to get rewarded. And that is not the case. The case is actually the opposite. You want to find joy in this life. That's what this life is about, is learning to have joy despite your circumstances, and a life of joy where occasionally circumstances may knock you off a little bit. You'll have to find your way back, right? You go through a stressful time, but it shouldn't be always stressful with a little bit of in between. It should be like generally pretty happy life. And I lived a long time just believing, oh, I just gotta suffer and endure to the end. And that is not the purpose of life. It is not to endure. It is not to suffer. It is to have joy. And I know that Joseph is one of those people who's found ways to have joy as well. And I've surrounded myself with as many of those kinds of people as I can. And I'm grateful to have Joseph in my life for sure. He's an amazing person. So I'm grateful to be here.
I just love that. The eat. Like, well, it is. And like for so much of my life too, I mean, I never would have called it depressed, like per se. Maybe it was, maybe it wasn't. But for me, it was really just feeling this pressure, like that I had to be married in order to be happy. That if I wasn't
Mm-hmm.
married, I was not allowed to be happy. And if I'm being really honest, hopefully I don't get like, thrown under the bus for saying this, but for a long time, like, especially since you and I both belong to the same faith, our church was all about get married, get married, get married, get married. It was only just a few weeks ago they finally came out and said, "Hey guys, we just want to let you know the majority of adults in the church happen to also be just like you. They happen to be single." But for so many years, it was like, what?
Surprise!
Yeah, it was like for so many years, it was washed under the rug. It was like, just, no, that doesn't exist. We're a family church. And it's not saying bad about the church for sure. I think just some people, when they have a different experience of life, it's really hard to relate with other people. When
Or
somebody's,
you think that it's you kind of oust yourself. Like you think, oh, I can't be part of that group either. I don't have the same things in common with them. They wouldn't understand. When maybe they would, but you think, oh, I'm not married or I don't have kids. I just can't relate. And I I don't know that that's true. I think we often do that to ourselves.
well, and I think you're right. I think the second that something doesn't look like it fits in what we believe our world to be, it's like, oh, that's not for me. I don't want to deal with that. I got all this important stuff, my own family and all these other things to deal with. I can't worry about that little single person. Like, I mean, that's honestly, there were times I felt that way. And it's like, I don't know, especially with just the all the stuff going on in the world. And I don't know, it just like you can't just go up and hug somebody's kid anymore. Like it's frowned
Yeah, it's
upon.
true.
Like
Yeah.
whereas
It can be a
before,
lonely place. I think that's Satan's greatest tool, making us feel like we're alone, regardless. I mean, I cannot tell you, I felt more alone when I was married for 10 years than I did when I was single. I mean, picture that. It's just people who of all walks of life who may seem like they're doing fine. So many people out there are lonely. They feel alone. They don't feel understood, and it's just, I think that feeling of needing to be understood consumes a lot of people. Surprise, we don't need to be understood. And I think when we let that go, that no one needs to understand me, and I can be fine with that. I can be totally happy when I was able to let that go. Like, so much relief, like just lifted off. You don't when you don't care what people think anymore. And I think when we care too much about what people think, are we really being ourselves, or are we being manipulated by our own concern of what other people think and acting accordingly of what we think we should be or should be doing? And that is not cohesive with, or that's not helpful in trying to find a mate that's compatible with you. If you're constantly pretending or being manipulated by forces outside of you that are not allowing you to be authentic.
well, and say more to that about how you got to a place, because you said roughly around the time that you were till you were 25 that you felt fairly depressed. And I think there's quite a few people that are single that are lonely that kind of are in that case. Like, what do you know now, or what did you even discover at the age of 25 that you really realized that you could that you didn't have to be depressed all the time? Like, what was it that did it for you? If there
Well,
was a particular thing.
there were several, like, peeling back the onion moments, but I think that the
Yeah.
first kind of initial like jump start that made me realize, oh my gosh, there's hope. Like, I don't have to be depressed forever, was when my mom went to the doctor and reported back to me after her visit with him, because she was taking Prozac, I was taking Prozac, right? I've been taking it for about 10 years. And it kept me under wraps. It kept me in control, so I wasn't exploding all the time. I was kind of a mess. And she told me that, hey, I went to the doctor and talked with him, and he told me that long-term side effects of antidepressants is that, if you take them for years and years and years, you start to kind of just get lackadaisical, not want to do anything, and basically just turn into a couch potato. And I was like, ugh, like, no way, I'm not signing up for that. And I was kind of at a loss, because I tried many times to get off of it, tried different things, affirmations, blah blah blah, and all the things I knew how to do, and nothing worked. So I was just at a complete despair for a moment, until I literally threw up my hands after getting off the phone with her. And I said, God, you made me. You know how to fix me, so fix me. I'm done. I'm not going to take these drugs for the rest of my life. Show me how to do it, because I don't know what to do. And I went on with my life. And about a month later, I was at a wedding I didn't want to be at. Just was having to be there. I was kind of drug into it. Okay, I'll go. The family, and the TV was on before the wedding started. And I never watched TV, but I was watching it and waiting for the wedding to begin. And this guy was on the screen talking about omega-3s and how good they are for you. And just kind of offhandedly said, in Greenland, it's one of the darkest places on earth. And yet the people there have some of the least incidents of depression in the world. And I think it's because they eat so much fish. And in my mind at the time, I thought, well, sounds healthy, but I'm sure it's not going to work for me. Nothing has ever worked for me. Tried fish oil, didn't work. So I'll do it anyway, though. Sounds like something that wouldn't hurt. So for about 3 months, I was taking these fish 3 times a week. And month 3 came around, I forgot to go get my medication. And by day 5, by day 3, I should have been a mess. it was day 5 of having not taken anything. And I suddenly realized that, oh, I need to go get my medication. And I started getting ready and then stopped for a minute and thought, wait. And I sat down and I was just like, oh my goodness, like, I'm okay. Like, I'm okay. Like, I'm not just okay, like, I feel pretty good. And I never went back. I never got it. But just, the bottom line was that I had been trying to fix this problem myself. And I thought that the harder I try, certainly God will reward me by my efforts. You know, I want to fix this and I have to do it. I have to try, I have to put it, you know, by their works, right? And I realized that no, it's completely realizing and admitting you can't fix it. You can't. Only God can. And when you release it and you say, I can't do it, I can't. And then you allow him to fix it, like fully believing. I was like, he's gonna fix it, he has to, or like, I have no other hope. When I got to that point, I stopped trying, you know, and not trying, but it was like this wall was just obliterated. And all I had to do at that point was just start walking forward. And I didn't hit the wall anymore. All I had to do was try not to trip over the rubble that was left over. And that's literally how it felt. And then at that point I was like, okay, like, what more can I do? What more can I do? Because I wasn't fixed. Like, my depression wasn't completely gone. I just could function without the medication. And then at that point I was like, okay, now there's work to do. Like, I want to find out more. I want to find out how to improve on this. And I've started seeking out, and the Lord sent me all the people I needed, the life coaches, the change in diet. And it was hard. I'm not saying it was easy by any means. Some of the hardest things came after that. But it was that willingness to turn it over and be like, okay, fix it. Because like, I'll follow suit. Like, I'll go where you want me to go. But my answers are not working. The doctors I'm going to, completely useless. Like, it's, you know, counseling, you know, it's not that it's bad, but it's like treading water. It's like, it's not, you're getting tired, and eventually you drown. Like, if you don't have a lifeboat to come get you, like, treading water is great, you know, reading scriptures, praying, all those things that the church teaches, it's good. They're all good, but it wasn't making me happy. And it's because I wasn't understanding what the atonement is really all about, how it works, and how to apply those things, and allowing God to, that oneness of knowing and being, and not trying to force things or control everything, the control, releasing that control. So I think, and that was the same thing that happened to me before I got married, was releasing that control and stop trying to make it happen myself, and trying to, you know, do all these things, or if maybe I could do this, if I do that, or I change this. It was just like, okay, like, you know what I need, fix it. Like, the same thing, you know, when I finally released that.
And real quick, before you jump to the story of how you met your current spouse, there's something I heard in that, and I was actually reading this morning in the scriptures in the Book of Mormon, that part about Nephi asking God to let him be strong and burst these bounds, and all he did is, it says, and he loosed the bounds. He didn't let him have that mighty moment of strength of like, I am the Hulk.
You must have read about Samson and Delilah.
Like, he didn't let him experience that. Instead, he's like, oh, okay, cool, they're off. Yeah. I wonder if even like a small part of him was like, no, I wanted to do this. I wanted to be strong. I wanted to be like the Hulk and just rip him off. And I think so often we want to do that. It's the ego. It's that part of us that he didn't just say, let me loose these bounds, let me burst these bounds. Like,
well, it's part of that identity. Like, I'm a strong guy. I want to prove myself. I want to, and that was a big problem. One of the biggest problems that I had, and I dated a lot of different people, a lot of the same guy over and over again, just with a different face. And ultimately,
well, say more what you mean about that. Same guy, different face, just so people understand.
Just, I kept attracting the same, you know, you kind of attract what you are. You attract what you believe you deserve. So if you feel like you don't deserve a great person, or you set your standards here because you're like, well, I'm older, I probably can't get a guy that's better than this. I shouldn't expect too much. Then that's what you're going to get, and that's what you're going to accept. And that's what, you know, it was just, they were all selfish. I mean, just they didn't have the same level of commitment that I was wanting. I was committed. They were like lukewarm. A lot of them were quite narcissistic, um, and not particularly good for my kids. And it was rough. I mean, like dating all those different people is rough, but it was like the same lesson over and over and over again. And I think when I finally was like, okay, like I'm not choosing very well, and something that I actually heard in a Lewis Howes podcast, there was a girl on and she was talking about her experiences where she would attract or start dating these guys where she would feel this intense, crazy sexual attraction to someone. And that's what I was looking for. I wanted this strong sexual attraction, right? To be because I lacked that in my first marriage. It was very lacking. And so that was kind of at the forefront for me. I need attraction. And in this podcast, she talked about how she had a lot of things in her past, a lot of abuse, things that made it so that she was attracted to people who were abusive. And so she would get really infatuated, really like fiery, passion, excited about these guys. And then it would get really hot really fast. And then she would realize they were jerks and it would end. But it was like she started recognizing that when she felt that intensity, that I can't get my hands off of him, I can't get my mind off of him, just so infatuated, crazy about a person, that it was a red flag for her that this is not the guy for you. And she started recognizing that her tendency, this trigger, that whatever was attracting her to these kind of guys with that kind of intensity was not a good thing. And it was when she finally looked for someone who was kind, who gave her a sense of just peace. And once she found peace, she knew that was the one. And I took that to heart because I felt like that was what was happening to me. I kept being, just voraciously into these guys that I knew weren't probably the best, but I thought, well, maybe, I'll give it a try. When if it's a maybe, I'll give it a try, it's probably not a good thing. You're wasting your time. But unless there's still something. But I was like, when am I going to learn this lesson? And I finally, after the last time before I met my husband, it was probably the guy before I met my husband. He wasn't bad. He was a step up, but still just not it. He was still selfish and ultimately not willing to make the same kind of sacrifices I was willing to make to be with him and so forth. And that's when I had a friend who kind of beat me a little bit over the head, like, what are you doing, Jen? Just come on. And I finally realized, like, okay, you're right. I'm just going to date, and I'm going to try to date nice people. And I literally was like, okay, and I knew this all along, but I was finally ready to let go of that. I want these things on my list. And to trust the Lord and say, I know you know who's good for me. Please help me to find someone who is kind, who will treat me and my kids with love and respect, who will be loyal, with a ton of faith, with a crazy amount of faith, equally yoked kind of things in our ability to follow the Lord, and help me to recognize him when he shows up. And regardless of any of the things that I'm wanting, help me to let all of that go and just trust. And I dated several really nice guys, and then I dated someone, the only one I was attracted to. I went on 8 dates and spent about 2 weeks with this in mind. And the only one I was attracted to was the guy he is a jerk, and I know it. This is not a good guy for me. And he wanted to date me. And I finally said, no, I'm not dating you. And here's why. This is what I'm looking for. I'm sure you'll find someone else get through, but path you need, but I'm here and this is what I want. And this is not what you can give me right now. And it was after I said no to him that my husband showed up. And it was interesting because I felt that peace. There was a low level of attraction. It wasn't insane. And it took me a while to kind of I was like, this is a good person. He's kind. He had all those attributes. And I was like, okay, I need to need to explore this. I need to give this a chance. And it didn't take me that long, about 2 weeks. He was visiting from Idaho. He decided to stay and date me. And for me, that was huge, because no one had ever been willing to make that kind of sacrifice. It was always like, no, I could see that they could make a sacrifice. They weren't willing to do it. And he was willing to just come down here and date me, like move down here. And I thought we were going to do the long distance thing. He stayed. And about a month in, he could tell I was still kind of like not sure, I was gun shy, I've been hurt a lot. And he asked me if I'd go to the temple and pray about it. He said, I'm sure, I know that I want to marry you. We both talked about dating a year. That went out the window. He was like, why don't we get married now? But the problem was I'd gotten married twice before, fairly quickly, within, a month, 3 months. So this was a pattern for me that I didn't want to repeat. And I knew my family was going to be mortified if I married someone this quickly again. And, but I went to the temple, and while I was there, I realized just that you're like this, it doesn't get better than this. Like he's perfect for you. This is the man that you're supposed to be with. No one has ever made these kind of sacrifices for you. And the biggest thing that I realized was that I don't have to perform for him. Like every other relationship I'd had, the same guy, different face. I felt like I had to sell myself to them. I felt like I had to be like, look at me, I'm pretty. Oh, look, I did my hair. Do you like me? Do you still like me this week? Do you like me today? Do you like me tomorrow? Are you gonna like me in 10 years? What do I have to do to be attractive to you? Are you gonna leave? And it just felt like I had to like seduce them all the time, or like convince them that they wanted to be with me. Like, come on, you want to be with me because of this or that. Look how talented. And with him, it was surety. Like I knew this man is like, he loves me unconditionally. I don't have to prove anything to him. It just is. And he's never going to leave me. Like, I just knew it. And the peace that came with that. And I came home after the temple, and it was the coolest, craziest thing. Like he's an attractive guy, but like I was kind of holding back, right? And all of a sudden he was the hottest, most beautiful, most attractive man I had ever met in my entire life. And nothing had changed except just that knowing and understanding that the beauty of what I was beholding was like, because we're all going to get old and ugly and gray. Like none of that really matters. But it took me a while to realize that he was perfect. And I'm just going to say it. Our love life is amazing. We're very compatible. Like all those, fears that I'd had that were holding me back, I don't know, am I attracted enough to him? Like totally irrelevant. Like the Lord knew what I needed and the perfect man for me. And he's the other big thing was that first, the unconditional love and the faith. And the other thing was, I lost it for a second. Sorry. But it is the fact that he is so forgiving. Like finding someone who can forgive you and who will accept your forgiveness. Like when you make a mistake, and because I'm a very forgiving person, but I've been with other guys who are not so forgiving. So if I said something that offended them, or they would just get very angry, and I was toast forever, or it would be held over my head forever. And in a relationship, I can't think of anything more important, because you're going to make mistakes. You're going to piss each other off. You're going to do things that hurt them. It's just the way it goes. You're in a very vulnerable relationship, and you have to be able to forgive and do it as quickly as you can and move on. Where it's not always the easiest thing to do. And I think it's really the number one thing in any relationship, in my opinion, is finding someone who can forgive, who's kind.
Well, and Jennifer, you're sharing so much that I think super important, and I want to touch on a few things. Number one, having seen pictures of your husband, he's a good looking dude, and I find it really interesting. And the thought that occurred to me as you were talking about that is, it's almost like I don't know, not that something looks too good. It's just like we try to pretend that it's like, no, that's not it. Like that's an ugly man, or so something like that. And of how, and I love the part actually that you talked about how, you guys have an incredible love life, because that is important to so many people. Like
Yeah, but it wasn't my focus anymore. Like as soon as I stopped making it my focus, I got
yeah.
it anyway. Like and it's better than anything I've ever had. I've been married 3 times now. And I can say that, like, when some of the guys that I wasn't sexually, doing anything with,
Right.
because I only had sex with my husband, but some
Of
of the people
course.
that I was attracted to, that I would kiss and so forth, I felt like I had a better connection than I did to the people I was married with. And I was wanting that in my marriages. I thought I'd achieve. I found that in my second, and then that one just it dissolved very quickly. It was a strange one, but that it's kind of like the Abraham thing. I go back to that a lot, where Abraham had a son he loved so much, more than anything in the entire world, right? That was just
Yeah.
the number one to him, other than God. And that's the point, is that he was willing to give up the one thing that was the most important to him in this world. Was willing to do it, prepared to do it, was going through with it. And then he didn't even have to lose it. Not only because of his willingness, not only did he not have to lose what he wanted anyway, he got even more. And everything that everything like, and it was all he had to do was be willing to give it up. And I think when you're willing to give up those things you think are important, you'll have that and everything else too. And it's not that our marriage is perfect, but it's pretty dang good. Like I feel like we have what anybody would want to dream for. And it took me 35 years to find it. I mean, that's a long time for a lot of people in the church. And I had 2 failed marriages before, so it's just one of those things. If you feel like giving up, don't. It's just, there's certain things that you haven't learned yet, but you've got your whole life to do it. And obviously the faster the easier, but giving up is not an option for me, and it shouldn't be an option for anybody.
Well, and there's a couple things that you said there that you had said before that I thought about. Like I love the movie Groundhog Day, and I think it's
Yes.
so real for all of us. Like I wrote an article on Groundhog Day, how that is all of our lives. We're all going through the same challenges, the same problems, and we're just not willing to do what God or what our inner voice says
There's a lot of
to us.
excuses. I don't know anyone who likes them, excuses, but we all make them or we wouldn't be here, but some more than others to an extent. But if you're blaming anything on your situation, it's holding you back. You've got to get rid of excuses and start coming up with solutions, or asking the Lord rather to help you with those solutions. Because
And it's funny you say the word solutions, because most of your quote unquote solutions you did nothing with. All you did is you took one step that God said to take, took another step that God said to take, took another step that God said to take. Like, I think that's all there is to it. Is
yeah,
it's
releasing control and trusting the
yes,
Lord. That's pretty
surrender.
much your solution. Surrendering.
Like the more
And
I've gone through, go
I
ahead.
knew it. Like the whole time I was dating, I was like, I know I haven't gotten there yet. Like I'm not willing to release that control, because I was scared. My first 2 marriages, I thought these were men I was supposed to marry, and I thought I was following the Lord, and maybe these were things I was supposed to learn, but I was scared that maybe he was going to choose another bad one for me when I'd chosen the first 2. I mean, I
Did
did.
did you get, like, I know there's listeners of all faiths, but I'm just curious. Did you get that super peaceful feeling that's available to everybody, regardless of faith, religion, or anything? Did you get that super peaceful feeling about your 2 previous husbands, that they were right for you?
I got confirmation that I was where I needed to be at that time. And then my first husband, I really think I needed to be married to him to
Okay.
learn what I needed to learn. I mean, and that's why I was married so long. I thought, well, I mean, I was told to marry this guy. I can't understand. But sometimes people make choices that takes them a different direction, and you can't follow them there.
Right.
My second husband, I felt confirmation, but then things changed, and I felt like something had changed, something, that maybe it wasn't right, but I thought, no, I need to stick with my first answer. And what I learned from that is that sometimes you need to ask again. Sometimes things change. Sometimes people change. And if I had known then what I know now, I wouldn't have married him, because I knew. But I was, my mom had an experience where she felt confirmation to marry my dad, and then shortly after that she was scared, and she had all these instant like doubts and things, and then she realized that was just Satan. So I kind of took that experience and applied it to myself when it was a little different, because my dad hadn't changed. He was still, loving and kind, and whereas the person and ended up marrying in my second marriage, he was making different choices, and I could tell, I could feel it. And I think that was the difference, was his agency was taking him this way, when I just thought, no, I was told it was, the right guy, but maybe it was just the right guy that I need to be dating at that time. And I really didn't need to be marrying him. So, live and learn. It was a hard lesson for sure. But
And with that second guy, was it one of those guys that you talked about before, of it was the same guy with a different face? Was it one of those like super attractive dudes that you're like,
oh, super
you
attractive. Yeah,
that
he
you
was like
kind
a
of like
Ken Barbie
really
doll.
that you kind of like really, really wanted to have? And I think sometimes we kind of like force our answer on God. It's like, this is right, right?
Yeah,
And we
yeah.
get nothing, and we're like, oh, I think I felt a morsel of something. That means
Well,
yes, I'm
with
going for it.
him, he was kind of gravitating towards the church. He was kind of accepting some of that light. And then there came a point where he stopped. And I think if he'd kept going that direction, towards the gospel, that things could have been good. But I felt it when he stopped, and I wanted him anyway. I didn't listen.
Interesting. Well, and I love what you said there. Like I felt essentially a stop. Like there was that stop, and like I had that, one time when I was
And that
engaged to a
lack of
girl,
progression,
like
or like going the other way, and I was like, no, I'll pull you, it's okay. When I didn't want to pull anybody, but at the time, I wanted him so badly that I was like, oh, I'll do what it takes, I'll work, I'll do this, and ultimately I didn't have that choice. I would have done it, but he took off. He left us shortly after we got married. So and it was, a lot of it was the gospel, or the belief system that I was raised with, was my belief system that he didn't want anymore. And he just was like, sorry, see ya. I don't want to do this anymore. I don't want to be married. And that was a tough thing to go through, and then questioning myself and my worth, and going through quite a dark time, about 3 months of very, very sad, and wondering what I did wrong, and questioning my path, and my intuition, and being afraid to listen for quite some time, because like, what if I'm wrong again? It's so embarrassing. So embarrassing. I'm divorced twice. And like, who grows up and thinks I'm gonna be divorced twice someday, or 3 times, or 8, or whatever? But nobody.
Well, isn't it funny? Because from what I heard you saying is God told you to stop, and you went forward, and then you come back and you're like, I still have to question my intuition. It's like, no, God told you to stop. It's like,
Yeah.
but we do that, and I know quite a few people that I've talked to. They really do get in that place. They begin to question. They begin to question their faith in God. They begin to question their faith in their ability to make decisions. What would you say to people that have been divorced twice? Because I can't say anything about being divorced, because I've never even been married once. I mean, the closest I got was being engaged, and then God gave me a very strong stop sign, one of the strongest I've ever got in my life. Is like,
Mm-hmm.
no, do not pass. This is not the direction for you.
Mm-hmm.
But what would you tell people that have been divorced twice? that are like, I don't think God cares. I don't think there's anyone else out there for me. I don't want to go through that pain again. What would you say to those people?
Well, first of all, pain's an opportunity. It's one of the greatest opportunities for growth there is. You can either become better or bitter. And I don't know, I mean, extremely painful, of course, to have any relationship end, whether you're married or single. But we're here to experience things. And I guess that's how I've always looked at it, as if I'm here to learn stuff and go. And if I just hide in a box and like, I don't want to get hurt again. I mean, what kind of life is that? I'm not willing. I want to love, and there's no shame, none at all, in loving somebody else, even if they don't love you back. That's something to be proud of. The fact that you can love someone, you know, unhindered, and it's non-conditional. And if they don't love you back, you know, that's fine. It's cool. You know, they left. Oh well, you know, you did your part. You loved, and you did the best you could in any given moment, even if your best at that time sucked. And I can tell you, my first marriage, I was a mess. I was not a healthy person, but that was the best I could do at that time. And being willing to forgive yourself and look back at that past person of yourself and go, you know, I love you. I love you, past version of me, you know, like 16-year-old version of me. I love you. And to look at the situation and go, oh, like, you didn't handle that very well, did you? But it's okay. You know, because of you, I've gotten to this point, and this point is exactly where I'm supposed to be. And there's that opportunity now for me to grow and find someone else. I mean, once that person is gone, it opens up the opportunity for the right person. And it's not about just the right person, it's about being the right you. Like, if you keep going through the same thing over and over again, you have to be real with the very stark reality that this is your problem. It is not their fault. There is something inside of you that is doing this, and you need to figure out what it is, or it's not going to change. Whether that's a habit, whether that's a belief system about yourself, whether that's a belief about other people, how the world revolves, something you need to let go of, or you will keep finding that same man or that same woman. And it really is about your personal agency, your personal truth, your personal choice. And as soon as you stop blaming everything outside of you for your own problems and start looking here, things can start changing. But it's got to be you. You can't get stuck in places where you're like, well, he did this and he did that, and I went through this as a child. I was sexually molested, so I have all these problems. Like, get over it. Like, yes, it happened, but if you keep living in the past, and you're going to be stuck there. You have to look towards the future, see that person you want to be, married with kids, happy, whatever it is, you know, successful, beautiful, great posture, you know, like, just whatever it is, like, you know, trim, and whatever it is for you that you want to see in your future. You can keep living in the past and keep manifesting that past over and over and over again, or you can start seeing yourself the way you want and start creating that. We're creators. We're, you know, children of God. We're made to create things. And I think that there are forces and energies in this world that want to keep us stuck, that want us to blame, that want us to, that it'll just keep us stuck. We have all the potential and the power in the world to change things and to manifest what we want. But we've got to figure out what's stopping us first.
And I just want to add, because I know some people aren't going to agree with what you said, but I just want to double down on what you said as far as our past. Is it right that people have been sexually molested? Is it right that they've been raped? Is it right that horrible things have happened to them? No. But that event is no longer happening to them. It's just the memory and the thinking around that event, that there's some terrible person, or that it diminished their worth. I can step on a dollar bill, I can smash it, like I can do almost anything to it, and it's still worth $1. But people don't see that, and they think of themselves as used and broken and all these other things, whereas they're not. Like, just what's that?
You said something to me one time that I was just like, yes, about how, like, you're watching the same, like, you hate this movie, right? why are you watching this movie over and over and over again? You don't do that with movies. If you hate a movie, you stop watching it. And you watch it once and say, oh, I didn't like that movie. But how many of us, when we relive past over and over and over, watching the same movie over and over and over again, instead of reconciling it, saying, pause, okay, like, how can I forgive this person? How can I forgive myself and let this thing go and not watch it again?
That's pretty useful advice. Like, how can I forgive myself? How can I forgive this person? And how can I not watch this movie anymore? Well, and I think especially some of the traumatic experiences, like one I went through that I'm not going to give the details, but the gist of it was like I was fearful about around being around these places anytime that I like that had to do with this experience. Like and and so like we do have thinking arise when we're around those things and when we're in those places, or maybe if depending on the location that something horrible happened to somebody, they might have that. But if they understand in that moment that it is simply, I call it the crazy leprechaun voice, just trying to mess with them. It's trying to mess with them, and it's trying to remind them of all the things. Actually, recently, like I had this experience where I was playing guitar, and I thought about something that had happened at ice hockey. Some guy had like tried to slash my hand with his hockey stick, and it did not make me happy. This was like 5 hours later that I was sitting there. I was actively playing the guitar, and I have this thinking pop up like, hey, what about this? And the way I honestly look at it is, I look at that crazy leprechaun voice really as the adversary, the same way I believe in God, the same way I believe in a Satan. There's a higher power, there's a lower power. Look at every single movie known to man. There's almost, especially Lord of the Rings, Star Wars, Harry Potter, etc. There's usually a higher power and a lower power. That's what I believe in. And the adversary messes with us, and he tries to mess with us. And what I really see it as is like, oh, well, there's that thought that I should have done something differently about that situation. Okay, cool. Like, well, what is it in this moment that I'm creating? What is it in this moment that I'm doing that Satan's trying to distract me from? Because that's all it is. He's just trying to distract us. And if
Yeah,
we go ahead.
my son, like when he does poorly in a soccer game, like he makes a mistake. For example, when he gets home, I always remind him to, like, tonight before you go to bed, think about those incidents where you didn't do something right? And you're frustrated about it. I want you to imagine yourself doing something differently, like the same thing, just, the ball's coming, and what are you going to do now? And you're going to do it perfectly. And you're going to do it perfectly. You're going to do it perfectly. And if you can reframe, if you can go back and be like, that didn't go very well. So I'll go back to an incident where maybe I didn't handle something very, very nicely or very well. And I'll, in my mind, I'll go back. I'll try to fix it in real life too. I'll apologize to the person or whatever. But in my mind, I'll go back and I will actually play it out again. But this time I handle it differently. And I do something different. I say something differently. I don't react the way I did. And that's my way of being, okay, like I'm learning from this experience. If this happens again, this is how I'm going to do it. This is what I'm going to say. And I think that's a part of repentance, is like almost like going back in your mind and being like, this is how I'm knowing what I know now. This is how I would do it differently. I can't go back, but I can say in the future, this is me. Starting now, this is how I handle situations like this.
Well, and I just have to say, for those people listening, Jennifer Sterling Campbell's kids are incredibly dedicated. One of her sons has a cover on YouTube that has an insane amount of views of a Frozen song. And like, they're incredibly dedicated, they're incredibly disciplined, and they're all doing things they really enjoy doing. And I think there's something to be said for that. Like, about, I know there's, plenty of single parents out there, and you were a single parent for quite a while. How in the world did you have the ability to help your kids stay disciplined? Like, but without being the evil mom, because like you just don't really have that in you, but your kids still do, what they're supposed to do most days, and they're incredibly successful because of that. Can you speak to like the single parents of how you manage that to like work, do your kids and all that stuff?
But when they were really little, it was a lot harder. Um, I had my kids doing, music or whatnot, something that they would have to do on a daily basis. Because I feel like it's unfortunate, but most kids in this planet don't grow up on a farm, or at least in this country, don't grow up on farms. If you grow up on a farm, you got the work ethic, you've got, just goals. You have to get up, you have to do the work. City boys, a little harder. So my goal in providing them with just something they can call theirs that could kind of take them through those teen years that they can hold on to, even though that's not their identity. It definitely helps when you have something other than alcohol to go to, or drugs or whatever. If you got, I'm a tennis player, or I do music. And so from the time they were very young, and like 4 or 5 years old, they were doing something of their choice, and they would practice that 30 minutes a day, and they did not play until that was done. And sometimes it would be me sitting there with them crying and making them do it and throwing a fit, and it lasting 3 hours because I couldn't get them to sit down and do it. But they learned after, it's just the discipline. They're choosing what they want to do, but they will do it for 30 minutes every day, regardless. And now that they're older, they know when mom says, okay, you got to practice. Okay. And they'll go do it. And they read their scriptures before bed. I've read the scriptures to them since they were a month old. They've never known a day without it. And one of my biggest goals, I feel like the Lord will give you what you want. He will provide the way. All the way through my very difficult 10-year marriage, we struggled financially big time. By all standards, I should have gotten out and gotten a job. I wanted to be a stay-at-home mom and raise my kids. I didn't want someone else doing that job. So I don't know how we always made it. We were in terrible debt during a time, tens of thousands of dollars in debt. I found a way to do it. I got my job. I worked from home, and we made it through. But it was because I had decided already, I am going to be a stay-at-home mom, single, married, whatever. They are my priority. No one else is going to do that job but me. And the Lord provided the ways for that, to make that happen. And I'm really grateful for it. I feel like, everybody's situation is different and everybody's path is different. Maybe the Lord may tell someone else, you need to get a job. For me, it was the Lord respected my wishes and honored that and provided ways for me. And I think that if you can, do it. Find a way to be there for your kids. I worked after I was divorced, and when it was half time, I worked on the days they weren't home, and I found ways around it and just to make it work. And I think it's definitely worth it, the sacrifice. And I had a lot of help, a lot of people that came forward and said, I'll let you live in this basement apartment for what you can afford. An employer who would pay me, so much money to do work that, more than probably a lot of people would offer to pay me, but it was what I needed to make it through. And it was just the right people came at the right time and provided that way. If you want it, the solutions will come, and that goes for anything.
I mean, there's so much that you're saying that is just awesome. I love our conversations. I like the things that I want to pick up on in that. Number one, you let your kids choose what they want to do. That is super cool. Like so many parents are like, no, my kid will do this. I was a high school football player, so my kid will play football. And it's like, no.
Well, and the other thing is too, there was no incentive to quit, because if they were like, I don't want to play cello anymore, it was like, well, that's fine, but you got to do 30 minutes of something else. There was no relief.
Cool.
They were going to have to do something for 30 minutes a day. And now it's an hour, because they're half time with me, half with dad. They don't practice at dad's house. They only practice here. So when they're here, it's an hour.
Well, and how cool is that you're able to say like, okay, well, I know you guys aren't doing anything at your dad's house, and I know your children's dad, so no disrespect there, but like, you've taken control of your house. I mean, because you can't, like, when you're dealing with kids going to different houses, you have zero control. And I know there's quite a few single moms, or even moms that are married, did kind of struggle with that, of just allowing it. Hey, whatever happens, it's almost like, forgive the reference, but it's almost like whatever happens in Vegas stays in Vegas, because you can't do anything about it. I mean,
Yeah, you really
there's
can't.
crazy
And you have
laws, there's
the
crazy
sooner you learn
everything.
that, let it go, the better. The happier you'll be.
Like,
You can pray like crazy. And that's what I do when they're dads, because that's all I can do. And that's all, you've got to put that control again in the Lord's hands, that
did you
he
ever
loves
do it
them, he knows
differently though?
them.
Did you ever do
Yeah,
it
there was a
differently, where
time
you were
when,
always worried about it and like always,
oh
oh,
yeah, like
why is
I
this
was like,
happening at your
you need
house?
to practice at your dad's house, and why isn't he letting you practice? Or whatever it was, or lots of different things. So I was like, oh, frustrated. And when I finally was like, well, we're two different people. We're divorced. That's just the reality. And then you do you when they're with you, and you let dad do him when they're with him, and you don't complain, and you certainly don't put dad down, and you support and you uphold their dad. And this is the way we do it here, and that's cool, right? But I respect that that's different than dad's house. Well, that's okay. We just don't do that here. And that goes for behavior. It's hard. It's been hard. One of my sons gets away with a lot at his dad's house, the way he treats his older brother. It's not very nice. So he comes here and he tries to treat his brother that way. And we're like, like, not here. Sorry. That's not how we treat each other here.
I mean, my mind is kind of blown, just because this, for so many people listening, I bet this is a very foreign concept. And seeing honestly how, like like just seeing how you really mean it. And if you guys are watching this podcast, feel free to go watch the YouTube version, and you guys can see how much she really means what she's talking about. Like, there is no, this isn't a fake conversation. Like, you really know, you really do believe that what happens at your house happens at your house, and what happens at their dad's house happens at their dad's house. And the reason I'm emphasizing that is so many people believe that's like a pipe dream. And they also won't allow it to happen. They're like, no, I have to worry about everything that's happening at this other house.
Worrying does
It,
nothing. It's not
yeah.
helpful. It just makes you stressed out. I mean, when I start to get worried, I pray. That's it. Just pray and turn it over. And they really are very blessed. They're in a good household. It's just different, different than my house. It's okay. And they're learning two different styles. They're observing, and if you allow kids to love each parent and respect each parent in the way they do things, they're gonna be fine. Like, the worst thing you can do is put down the other parent,
Yeah.
because kids, especially, their identity and their worth is so connected to the other parent. If you convince your kid that their dad is a piece of trash, they're gonna say, "Oh, well, I'm his kid. I must be trash too." Like, there's no way around that. So you have to uphold the other parent, for the sake of, if you love your child, you love their dad, and you uphold their dad, and you tell that child their dad is amazing. You doesn't mean you have to sugarcoat it. Like, if the other parent is like doing things that are not nice or not appropriate, you say, "Oh man, that was rough. I'm sorry that happened. Ugh. Like, I wish he hadn't done that, or that wasn't okay, but we still love your dad and respect him. Like, he's not perfect, and not being perfect is okay. We just try again." You
Yeah,
know.
because none of us are perfect. And I mean, and letting their dad be human, and also letting them be human. And I mean, and the fact they can treat each other one way, like even the brothers treating them each other one way at one house and one way at the other house, is just kind of funny. Like, that's just kind of, and I think it's awesome. I mean, I think it's really awesome and amazing that you have that ability and you have that experience to just be with them, you know? Like, I mean, I think that
And
is
agreeing to
incredible.
disagree. Like, it's okay if you don't agree with the other parent. Be like, "I don't agree with that, but he's allowed to have his opinion. I'm allowed to have my opinion. You don't have to be like, oh yes, everything he says is fine. But you relay it as an opinion. I have a different opinion. And you have a different opinion. We're all allowed opinions. That's what's wonderful about living in a country with free speech. So
Exactly. Well, Jennifer, we're starting to wrap up here, but I just wanted to give you a few moments to share, like, whatever message comes to you, about helping single people find hope and happiness, during this journey of being single, when many of them really, 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 really want to be married, and they really, really want to have, all of these other experiences that you do when you're married.
learn to be happy with yourself first. If you can do that, you'll be happy in a marriage. But if you're looking for happiness in a marriage, you're never going to be happy. Like, you might for a little bit, and then it'll dissipate and you'll be right back where you were before. You've got to be okay by yourself. Not just okay, but like really, really good. Really, really just in a place where if you were single the rest of your life, you'd be okay. Like, you're just accepting and seeing how, just playing it out and moving forward with the knowledge that of course I'm going to be married. The timing will come, it's going to be fine. But you don't worry about it. You just work on yourself, because if you're working on yourself, you're basically working on your future husband too, because you're going to attract who you are right now. So if the better you are, your helpmeet will be equal to that, or at least along those lines. Like, who you are attracting right now says a lot about you, and that's not to be a slap in the face. I attracted a lot of different kinds of guys. The same guy, different face, but a lot of different kinds of issues. We all have them, but I had to ask with each time, like, okay, what does this say about me? What is this? Because I chose this. And the state that you're in right now, you created, you chose. That's okay. So create something you want. Move forward with that knowing in mind, not just hope, but know it, decide. I'm going to be happy. And that was probably the biggest turning point for me. Just one last thing was my life coach was trying to help me through the last year of my marriage. I wasn't sure if I was going to get a divorce, but I was at that point and just devastated about my situation, because it didn't seem like there was any good way out. Divorce, cruddy, stay in my marriage, cruddy, just all bad. And I was in such despair. And she told me, Jennifer, you have to decide right now that you're going to be happy. This is the truth, okay? That you are going to be happy. You need to hold on to that. Either you're going to be happy in your marriage. You're not going to be like suffering through a marriage, okay? If you stay in your marriage, it's going to be a happy one. And if you leave, you're going to be happy single. And you have to believe that right now, like, because that's the truth. Yeah. And I thought about it for a minute, and I realized she's right. And I was like, I can hang on to that. I can hold on to that. And that alone is what got me through the rest of that year. Just that holding on to that truth that I will be happy, even though I'm not happy right now. And it honestly didn't take very long. Once I was able to see it, feel it, just kind of embrace that with that little bit of hope, and started moving in that direction with that hope in mind that it's going to be fine. It's going to be okay. And it was. And I was able to achieve, like, being happy in and of myself in a miserable situation. And it was only then that I was able to feel right about making that decision. If you make the decision before you're at that point, you're doing yourself a disservice. You will go out and attract the exact same thing. So if you're at the point where you're married or thinking about getting divorced, or you've just gotten divorced, but you never quite got to that point of being happy, you better work on yourself before you even think about going out and finding someone else. Because it's going to be a lot easier to grow and develop and bring the right person if you're in the right place.
Yeah. That is just beautiful. I mean, It is. It's all about accepting yourself and getting yourself to the place that you really want to be. And the fact of attracting, absolutely. I mean, the happier we are, like genuinely happy. Nobody likes fake happy. Everybody can see through
Mhm.
that. But I mean, even when you and I first met a couple of years ago, like it was a we connected fairly quickly because I think we're both happy people. And
And
like,
releasing that need, like I need this to be happy. I need, like, you don't need anything. You don't need
yeah.
anything to be happy. You could be in the worst situation and still have that peace and that knowing and that just
Yeah.
okay. And if you read books like The Hiding Place, where some of the really, really horrible situations the Jews were in, and The Hiding Place is a great example of that, where she has this just inner joy, and she's put in terrible situations and terrible loss, and yet she still has that inner peace that they can't take away. And nobody can take that from you.
Yeah.
If you don't need anything to be happy, what can they take? They can't take your
It's
happiness.
they, they can't. And I mean, that's really what I've found too, is just, I mean, I'm happy. I mean, I'm single, but I'm happier now than I've been in a long, long time. And I just keep getting happier and happier the more engaged I get with the things I feel that God wants me to do. And, then I just have a lot of really cool experiences. Well, any final thoughts before we wrap up here?
And that, I really enjoyed talking to you, and thank you for the opportunity. I Nothing that comes to my head at the moment. Just I'm really
Tell
grateful.
people, if people want to contact you, tell them how they can contact you.
You could go to my website at imaquarius.com. Not I am,
Okay.
but like I am, like I'm Aquarius.com. You could
Okay.
contact at imaquarius.com. And right now I've been doing some blog posts. It's kind of taken a standstill for a bit because I'm trying to develop a program, a year-long program, and that's taken some time. But for anyone struggling with mental disorder, but there's a lot of different facets I want to grow on my blog, just with relationships and so forth, because it all they're all interconnected, like wellness in all of the areas of your life, it helps. So
For, for sure. And like, do you want to? Are you on Instagram or anything like that you want
I
to
am.
share?
I'm Aquarius Jen on Instagram. I'm Aquarius Jen on Facebook, I believe, and I think I was able to get I'm Aquarius on Twitter. But
I love it.
yeah.
That sounds really cool. So, if you guys want to connect more with Jennifer, she is amazing. You guys can check her out on her website or any of the other places she has described. And thank you so much, Jennifer, for being here. Really appreciate it. And then just want to say to our audience, go out and live your adventure. Thank you.